Hello everybody! I feel like it has been forever since I've actually recorded and edited and posted a video, so my goal after recording this is to actually get it edited and posted before the end of New Year's Day, because I'm going over my reads, all of my reads from 2025. Now, I did a poll on my Instagram story asking if you wanted my 25 top reads, a tiered ranking, or a wrap up of all my reads, and the 25 best won, but I was really in the mood to do a tiered ranking of all of my reads. So that's what I'm gonna do. I have 5 tiers. The bottom tier is called You Didn't Stick Out to Me. Now, if you start to pick up on the names of the tiers, good, it is a Dance Moms reference. So You Didn't Stick Out to Me are these like neutral, forgettable, I wouldn't really recommend books. Then I also am reading off my notebook so I can kind of remember and try to keep this under an hour because I can yap. The next tier, so we had the bottom tier, You Didn't Stick Out to Me. We have second bottom tier, You Were Good, I'm Waiting for You to Be Great. Those are books that were just like not for me. They weren't necessarily bad books. I wouldn't necessarily recommend them though, or ever find the need to like read them again if I had the chance. Then we have the middle tier, which is third on the pyramid, third overall high score. Those are books that I think are reader dependent or just good. Some of the books on that category are going to be very niche. Some of them only work for specific audiences, and some of them, again, they were good books. Second to the top, so we had You Didn't Stick Out to Me, You Were Good, I'm Waiting for You to Be Great, third on the pyramid, third overall high score. Now, and Mackenzie, because that's all Abby Lee Miller says. That is strong reads, would recommend to almost anyone. Books that I really enjoyed, I'd recommend again to most readers. Solid without being groundbreaking, or what most people would consider groundbreaking. And then we have top of the pyramid books. Now, these are books that stuck with me throughout the whole year. They were my personal favorites. They are books that I wish I could read again. So I'm going to start with the bottom. I have 5 books on the You Didn't Stick Out to Me category. I was in a lit and film class for some master's credits, so I can get a graduate certificate. The focus of the semester was vampire literature. I had read Dracula, which is the first on the You Didn't Stick Out to Me. Dracula's old. It can be really dense. If vampires aren't your thing, I don't think Dracula is going to be a thing for you. This is known as like one of the first vampire literature works. But before that, we have the second book on the list, Carmilla, which is actually, it predates Dracula in publication. So Carmilla, Dracula, they just didn't stick out to me. They were old. If you're into classics like that, maybe, but not for me. Then the next on the list are the 2 Maxton Hall books. Maxton Hall is a German show that is now on Amazon Prime. Maybe it's been on Amazon Prime. I had watched the first season. The second season was coming out shortly, so I decided I didn't want to really read the first book because I already knew what happened in the first season of the show. It was fresh in my mind, so I jumped into the second book. I didn't feel lost. The second book is called Save You. Not bad, just I didn't need to read it, but naturally, because the second season was out and the third season wasn't out yet, I did jump into the third book called Save Us. The books aren't necessary to read. Then the last book on the You Didn't Stick Out to Me, I know this was a fan favorite for many in the book world, and people have been eating up the series, but The Pumpkin Spice Cafe did not do it for me. It took me forever to get through, which is fine, but it was not a book that should take me forever to get through. It took me so long to get through because I just didn't really enjoy it that much. Now, You Were Good, I'm Waiting for You to Be Great. There are 8 books on this list. One, I don't even know the full title, Ashes, something of the Serpent King. It was a decent fantasy, but it was not memorable to me. There's a third book, maybe a fourth book even. I didn't go on to read it. All Good People Here was next by Ashley Flowers. Mediocre writing, mediocre storyline. I feel like what I read in it had all been done before. It had kind of followed like this true crime. I think if I remember correctly, this is the one that was kind of giving like JonBenet Ramsey storyline, but it wasn't anything new to me. Again, You Were Good, waiting for you to be great. Moving on, a continuation of the books that I read for my Vampire Lit and Film class is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. I believe this is originally in a trilogy. Good book, honestly not bad. Got a little lengthy, the complexity is there, and also on this list, Twilight. I had never read Twilight before taking this class. Good book. I get the hype. I think had I read it when I was 12 or 13, I would have absolutely devoured it, but because I'm an adult, it was a little cheesy. Fun read. If you haven't read Twilight and you want to check that box off your list, I wouldn't say it's a bad book, it's just a little tacky. Moving into another book is My Oxford Year. The book was better than the movie. I think the movie left out a lot, if I remember correctly. It kind of reminds me of the book and the movie by JoJo Myers. I think that's her last name. Me Before You, which I loved that book, loved that movie. It's just not as good. I love the setting of the book. The characters were fine. I like them. But again, this book was not fresh. It was not new. Then going into a standalone but also interconnected series is the Windy City series. There's 5 books in that series. I think they're all on Kindle Unlimited. And I really liked it. I read all 5 books. The first one, however, is the bottom ranked book in the series for me, Mile High. It's the first in the series. The female main character, I don't remember her name, but she was annoying. And what she's annoying about is she's very self-conscious about her weight, which, relatable. However, she's constantly going back to that. And maybe that's on purpose, because if you're someone who is self-conscious about your weight, I know from personal experience that my mind fixates on that all the time. I just think, Stevie, was that her name maybe? She just focused too heavily on that. And I think the rest of the series was much better. Different series interconnected that I'm going into is Wild Card by Elsie Silver. I didn't really remember when I was making up my notes for this what this book was even about, so I had to look it up. The female main character starts seeing her ex-boyfriend's dad unknowingly. The story's kind of weird there. It was just meh. It didn't stick out to me. Last one in the You Were Good, but I'm Waiting for You to Be Great is The Academy by Ellen Hildebrand. She wrote this one with her daughter. I think I actually have this one. Yes, I do. I borrowed it. Shelby Cunningham is her daughter's name. The book was fun. The characters were fun. The setting was fun. But there just was not a lot of depth to the story. And just, if you've ever read Ellen Hildebrand's books, they're just light, they're fluffy, they're fun. And that's all this book was just fun. We're moving up there. 3rd on the pyramid, 3rd overall high score is where we're at. And starting off with The Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I hope I pronounced that right. I put this on 3rd on the pyramid, 3rd overall high score, because I think it's very reader dependent. It offers a world perspective. It takes place in post-colonial Nigeria. The characters are very complex, and there's this weird, I shouldn't say weird, but there's this dynamic with religion that can make some people uncomfortable. There's complex family dynamics. There's just a whole lot going on that I think this is a really, really beautiful book. I think it offers incredible insights on culture outside of the US. However, this book is not going to be for everybody, but if you are into books that offer different cultural experiences or worldviews, this one, The Purple Hibiscus, would be a great one to get into. My next note on 3rd on the pyramid, 3rd overall high score, is for the entirety of the Zodiac Academy series, and my only note says, LOL. If you have read the Zodiac Academy series, you are going to understand what I mean by that. And if you haven't read the Zodiac Academy series, Let me just tell you, it is not going to be for everybody. It is not for every reader. The writing is immature. The series is, I think, 9 books long for no reason. And it's not like they're little 300, 400 page books. These are obnoxiously long books, and for what? There's so many characters, there's so many things going on, but I devoured the entire series. I saw it through to the end. I wanted to give up a few times. Like, why am I reading this? It takes place in a fantasy world. They have this thing, instead of Facebook, it's called Faybook, which is just like so tacky, but I couldn't stop reading them. And there's some really good things that are happening, and it's a decent plot and decent world building, but there's some cringe moments, multiple cringe moments, because there's 9 books, thousands of pages, so of course it's going to be cringy. So 3rd on the pyramid, 3rd overall high score, because it was a fun experience, but most people are not going to want to see it through to the end of the journey, which I totally understand. Sometimes I wish I wouldn't have spent so much time with the series this year. Moving on, we have Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. Now, this was a really cute book. It was an easy read. It was humorous. It was satirical, offering commentary on book banning and kind of how silly book banning can be. Next, Windy City series, a continuation. I believe this is book 2 and book 4. Book 1 was The Mile High. You Are Good, I'm Waiting for You to Be Great. The Right Move is book 2. This is Sister's best friend, so Stevie from Mile High. It's about her brother and her best friend. It's forced proximity when, I can't even remember her name. She moves in with the brother. The best friend moves in with the brother. They're living in the same apartment. It was cute. I really liked it. Then we have Play Along. This was accidental Vegas marriage turned into fake but legally real marriage for the sake of business and keeping jobs. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Then moving on to Wild Side by Elsie Silver. In my notes, I said I actually think this should be in the You Were Good, I'm Waiting for You to Be Great, along with Wild Card, because there was this weird WWE like subplot with the male main character, and I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, again, because I read it a while ago. It was just like that. I've never been a WWE person, so that subplot was just not it for me. Totally switching gears here into the next book, Jesus and John Wayne. This book focuses on how white evangelicals in America have played a role in shaping the political climate in the US. I think this book offers really interesting insights into white nationalism, into religion, and how, you know, in a nation that separates church and state by our Constitution, how that line is getting thinner and thinner, and that there's less of a divide. I don't think this book villainizes Christians or Christianity at all. I don't even think that's the intent of the author. I don't think there's any undertones that are saying Christianity and Christians are to blame. I think it's specifically focusing on white evangelical, white nationalist. It's looking and exposing these cultural values and how some of those cultural values have started contributing to this climate that we're living in right now when it comes to gender roles, power, who holds the power, why do they hold the power, should they be in power, and then just nationalism in general. So, really interesting. It's a nonfiction book. I don't think every reader is going to like it, but I think it was a really good read. I had seen it recommended so many times on Book Talk when looking at the nonfiction genre. So I enjoyed it. I listened to the audio though, and I would recommend that. I think sometimes it's easier to listen to nonfiction books on audio. Moving on, The Hawthorne Legacy. This is the second book in the Inheritance Game series. This is one that I just grabbed off my shelf in my classroom. I'd read the Inheritance Games last year. I think the Inheritance Games is fun. I think the Hawthorne Legacy is a good continuation of book one, kind of tying up some loose ends while untying other ends. But it's a young adult book, so it's not going to be for every reader, which is why third on the pyramid, third overall high score. Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I had seen this recommended also on Book Talk, I think by Brady Lockerbie, who is one of my favorite book talkers to follow. But this book is a combination of Dateline and Criminal Minds and Law and Order SVU. It's messed up. You can find it on Kindle Unlimited. It is not going to be for every reader. It's dark, it's disturbing. It's not a light read. I wouldn't even say it's a thriller. Like, there are some very disturbing graphic parts. I enjoyed it, but I also like watching Dateline and Criminal Minds and Law and Order SVU. I'm used to those storylines, so if you are someone who gets very, sickened by those storylines, and don't get me wrong, those storylines are often sick, but this book is dark. Take that into consideration, read the trigger warnings before you dive into it. Then, Alchemized. Now, Alchemized was originally written as a Draco Malfoy, Hermione Granger fan fiction. It was called Manacled. I never read Manacled. Let's start there. I do not think you have to read Manacled. In fact, Alchemized is what the author wrote for publication. So she changed anything that would connect it back to Harry Potter. I think there's also some crossovers or some similarities between Alchemized and The Handmaid's Tale. That's on my TBR. But the author changed anything that was too close to those books to allow her to traditionally publish Alchemized. It's long, also dark and disturbing. You're confused for the first third of the book, which you're supposed to be confused for the first third of the book. I think it's an incredible fantasy novel. It's dark, the world building is strong, the character development is crazy. I really, really liked it, but again, trigger warnings. It's not for everybody, which is why it falls third on the pyramid, third overall high score. Niche readers are going to like Alchemized. If you choose to read it, look at the trigger warnings first. Take your time with it. Allow yourself to read it in its full complexity. Reread pages if you have to. Go back and reread sections if you have to, because it's worth the read, but it's heavy. So, speaking of Harry Potter, because Alchemized came from Manacled, which had some fanfiction ties to Harry Potter, I did read the third book, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. It was a reread. I've read the series several times over, but I love it as a good holiday read around break. It was also 2025 challenge to read. It was 25 books in 2025, and one of the challenges was to reread a favorite. And the Harry Potter books are books that I love. I've read them since I was a child. It's fun to read them at any age. But Prisoner of Azkaban is such a fun book. I love Sirius Black. His redemption arc. I love him. Anyway, I read the Mina Lima. It's one of the illustrated versions. They no longer illustrate. So they illustrated the first three. I didn't know that they were I knew they were stopping their illustrations, but somebody else picked up that similar type of illustrations for the Goblet of Fire, and I actually got that one for Christmas. But Harry Potter, if you have not read it, because there are still people out there in my life who have not read Harry Potter, please pick the book up. We've almost made it to the end. We are at Anne Mackenzie, which is almost to the top of the pyramid. It is the second from the top. These are books that I would strongly recommend, books that I thought were good, books that I think most readers would like. Starting off with Poverty by America. This is a nonfiction book that I read way at the beginning of the year. with kind of this overarching question of why in one of the most advanced nations on earth are so many people living in poverty. And then the author goes through all of these factors that contribute to poverty in the US and then offers solutions on how we can fix some of the problems that exist. Now, I think poverty is something that is so nuanced that it really requires you to take a step back and to consider all sides of this. While this book obviously points fingers in some directions, if you are to read this book, I want you to go into it with a clean slate and open mind, rather than pointing fingers and blaming those who are impoverished or those who potentially have contributed to poverty somehow, some way. Then I read, this was also towards the beginning of the year, First Lie Wins. If thriller is your genre, this book is going to be fun. It follows a con artist. I enjoyed it. I don't remember a lot about it, which makes me think maybe I should bump it down on the list. The next two books are from authors that are auto-buy authors for me. Anything by Abby Jimenez and anything by Carly Fortune, I am going to buy and going to read and going to devour. The one by Abby Jimenez is Say You'll Remember Me. Now this one differed from her typical romance books. And why I say that is I think this one goes more into literary fiction and has the subplot of romance. We have family drama. We have a character with advanced dementia that leads into some of the familial problems. I really like the female main character. I really like the male main character. I like the storyline a lot. Then we have One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. If you have not read Every Summer After by her, start there before reading One Golden Summer, because there's some spoilers in One Golden Summer as it follows a brother that was involved in the conflict in Every Summer After. I think anything by Carly Fortune is such a fun summer read. Usually I think always the settings are just so fun and so cute. In Scream, Little Summer Beach Town. I love the characters. Going back to a nonfiction book, we have Empire of Pain, which focuses on the Sackler dynasty. If you do not know who the Sackler family is, they are the creators of OxyContin. They are with Purdue Pharma. So this book is heavy. It really points blame not only just to the Sackler family, but to all of the people who took missteps or who were just downright cruel for the sake of getting money and recognition. Really just greedy people. It points blame at a lot of people, not just the Sacklers, but that's kind of the main focus. The book starts out with the history of the Sackler family and then works its way into how they started this pharmaceutical empire that played a massive role in the opioid crisis that exists in the United States. Doing a 180 again, the Boys of Tommen series by Chloe Walsh takes place in Ireland. The first book that I have is Binding 13, which is the first book in the Boys of Tommen series. This one follows Shannon and Johnny. I love them. They're so sweet. But these books are heavy. Then Saving 6, which follows Joey and Aoife. And then Taming 7, which follows Claire and Gibbsy. These are interconnected. There are some really, really dark, complex problems. There is a lot of trauma within these characters, within the events. So please, again, read the trigger warnings with this. I will say the one problem that a lot of people online have said they have with the series is that they wish the characters were older, which is something I agree with. These characters are mainly in high school as the stories are being told, which does make some people uncomfortable. It is what it is. I just think the big thing here is to not sexualize them. I think that was the main thing online, is that people were sexualizing these teenage boy characters, which is disgusting because they are just that. They are teenagers. Moving on. What's a different transition for moving on? next. That's still trash. But we have Onyx Storm. I skipped over that in the notes. The Empyrean series with Fourth Wing, Iron Flame. Onyx Storm is the third book. It was good. I personally liked Onyx Storm a heck of a lot better than I liked Iron Flame. I'm excited to see where we go with the fourth book. I'm hoping she takes a little more time to write the fourth book than what she did to write Iron Flame. So I'm going to let her cook. I'm not in a hurry for her to get to book 4 because, I mean, I'm impatient because I want to read it, but I want it to be good when I read it. So we will see what that leads to. In the kind of same category of books that I love, auto-buy, we have Abby Jimenez, Carly Fortune, and the third is Emily Henry. I love all 3 of those authors. Emily Henry's Great Big Beautiful Life, honestly, I think got more negative reviews than I had seen from any of Emily Henry's books before. I really liked it. You have Alice and Hayden. They are competing. They're both authors that are competing to kind of take over the biography of this former heiress, tabloid queen. But as they're both meeting with her, they're realizing that what one is being told, the other is not being told, and vice versa. So there's gaps within the information, making it more difficult to put together a biography when they feel like they're only getting half-truths. Continuing with the Windy City series, the next 2 books, I believe it is book 3 and book 5 from the series. Caught Up is book 3, Rewind It Back is book 5. These are my highest ranked books from the Windy City series. I love them. First of all, Caught Up, single dad, Kai, one of the best book boyfriends that I ran into this year. I love him. I loved him in Miller's Story. I think that was her name. I absolutely loved Caught Up. And then Rewind It Back, second chance romance, childhood. They date as kids and then they kind of go their separate ways in adulthood and end up living next to each other. Broken Country, I devoured it. It is kind of like whodunit, literary fiction. I don't know how to explain the genre because I think Broken Country covered so many genres, but there was family drama, there was heartbreak. I think this book would make for the perfect book club pick. It might have actually been Reese's book club pick, if I remember correctly, but I loved it. I could not put it down. I didn't put it down. I think this was a book that I read within like one sitting. At least it felt like I did. Another book that I think would make a great book club read is The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. This is a historical fiction post-World War II. We have multiple POVs, multiple storylines that we're following, but the way it's organized makes it so easy to follow along with. And then within each of those point of views, we're getting closer and closer to present day, where we have already known from the beginning of the book that somebody died. So we're getting to know the characters from past stories, and then it works its way in to who died and why'd they die. And who's to blame. Rounding out the list is Dinner for Vampires by Bethany Joy Lenz. She does play Haley James Scott in One Tree Hill. This is a book, this is an autobiography or maybe a memoir. I think it's more of a memoir about her time on One Tree Hill, or just her time growing up in that industry while also being heavily involved in a small religious cult. So I did review that one on my Substack within my monthly report. I really liked it. I think it's really easy, if you have seen One Tree Hill, to get so sucked into the show and know that all of the characters were so good and that there was so much drama. They have a podcast, the girls from One Tree Hill do, but there were so many things going on behind the scenes with every character. It's really neat to have our eyes open as readers of what's going on in the show but also what's going on in their real lives while the show is being filmed. The next section has no notes because these are the books that are top of the pyramid. I love these books. Jessa Hastings had 2 books that made my top of the pyramid list. The first book, The Conditions of Will. The second book, Time of Your Life. I love Jessa Hastings' work. She is the author of the Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates books. The Conditions of Will, the family dynamic in this book and the characters and just the drama, I loved it. I think The Conditions of Will is a book that readers of any age could pick up. I read it, my sister read it, my stepmom read it, and I think we all loved it. It's so good. And unlike, it had some of the drama of Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates, but for totally different reasons. And I think everybody that's into books like that could pick up The Conditions of Will, even if you're not into the books like that. I think Conditions of Will was such a good book. And then Time of Your Life, this follows kind of like 90s model, 90s singer in London, I think. Both of those books by Jessa Hastings, 10 out of 10 would recommend. I love Jessa Hastings' work. Time of Your Life is getting a second book. The Conditions of Will, I believe, is only ever going to be a standalone. Continuing with those types of drama-heavy books are Keeping 13, Redeeming 6, and Releasing 10. These are also books in the Boys of Tommen series. Keeping 10 is the second book. It comes after Binding 13. It is Shannon and Johnny's story continued, found family, love. There's some hope at the end of a very dark tunnel that we saw within Binding 13. I loved it. Then we have Redeeming 6, which is after Saving 6. Joey and Aoife. Joey is Shannon's brother, older brother, and he's kind of the protector of the family. He goes through it. My heart is with him. He is such a flawed character, but he has gone through so much trauma. And I think he wants to do the best, but sometimes just doesn't know how, or is his own worst enemy. But I really think there was a redemption of his character. Not that I was ever against his character, but he had to really work through some things to end where he did within Redeeming 6. And then we have Releasing 10. So Releasing 10 is the most recently published book in the series. And this is dark. This is really dark. It follows Huey and Liz. Huey is Claire's brother from Taming 7. And then Liz is Claire and Shannon's best friend. So Claire is in Taming 7, Shannon is in the 13 books. This is by far the darkest book. There are people who I've recommended this series to that I've said, before you read Releasing 10, really look at the triggers and determine if you are going to be able to get through this book and feel okay. Because it is dark. It's not a happy ending. There's going to be a second book to it, but wow. There is a reason that these books have been categorized for an older demographic than young adult. I believe these books are no longer, at least at bookstores, marketed to young adults because they are so dark. And the thing is, it's not dark in a totally far-fetched, made-up thing. These are problems that actually exist in our world that people experience. And I think Chloe Walsh, the author, even took some of her own experiences or the experiences of people in her life to write the storylines of the characters that we see within the Boys of Tommen books. So they're all dark and have some really tough content. However, Releasing 10 is by far the darkest. Proceed with caution if you choose to read it. I personally think it was worth the read. I'm glad that I read it, but it's not going to be a book that leaves you feeling good. That's my final notes on that. I love the series be careful with releasing 10. Sunrise on the Reaping, if you are a Hunger Games fan, this is the newest installment of the Hunger Games books. This follows Haymitch. It's heartbreaking. It's devastating. Some people online say, I don't think it need to be written. But the thing with Suzanne Collins is she only writes when she feels like she has something to say. And this book had something to say. So, it is going to be made into the movie. I think the trailer is already out. Go watch it. But Sunrise on the Reaping, she did it again. She caught my attention with the Hunger Games when I was in middle school and has continued to stick with it book after book. One last fiction book that is not going to be for everybody, but it was for me, Normal People by Sally Rooney. Now, the problem with Normal People is that Sally Rooney's style is not going to be for everybody, because when she writes dialogue, she does not use quotation marks. So you have to get used to her style first. And this also isn't a happy ever after, I don't think. And I don't want to spoil anything, but Marianne and Connell had my whole heart. And the way the show just like added so much to it. First of all, I love the characters in the book, but then the actor and actress, Paul Mescal and Daisy Edgar Jones, I bow down to them, because the way they portrayed these characters, I would have thought that those parts were written specifically for those actors. So incredible. The setting, top tier. The acting, top tier. The drama, top tier. I still think about Normal People every single day. Okay, maybe not every single day, but I think of Normal People way too often. And my heart, just rip it out of my chest, throw it on the ground, and stomp on it. So that rounds out the best of my fiction reads. We are at the top of the pyramid, rounding out with 2 nonfiction reads. The first one was a short one that I listened to on audio. I believe it was called The Happiest Man on Earth. It is written by a Holocaust survivor. Those stories get me every single time. I think the author offered perspective on a terrible, tragic situation. And that's all I'm going to say about that one. It was short. I think it was a beautiful story taking place during a not beautiful time in history. And that's it. Beautiful story. And then ending the list with a book that I had put off for so long, and I'm disappointed in myself for doing it. We Have Known My Name by Chanel Miller. Now, this book was written by, I don't want to call her a victim, because she's very big on saying, yes, this happened to me, but she's not living as a victim. But with the Brock Turner trial, she is the victim in the Brock Turner case. Now, I reviewed Know My Name on my Substack a couple months ago, but I think this story was so important and so empowering, and I think it really highlights the complexities of sexual assault victims throughout their life and throughout their process, and shows how difficult the justice system can be and how hard trials can be for people who have fallen victim to such a heinous crime. So, there are, a lot of these books in my top list have trigger warnings. I think, male or female, Know My Name is a book that should be read. However, check the trigger warnings on Know My Name before reading it. It was outstanding. She's incredible. She, I think, is such a strong role model for women who have gone through similar events. So that's where I leave us with 2025 reads. 56 books, 9 books at the top of my list, and then it all trickles down from there. I hope that you were able to get something out of this video. I hope you were able to make it this long. I appreciate you hanging with me. And moving into 2026, I hope I can be more consistent with videos, because that's how this year went. I need to stop talking with my hands. I think if you tied my hands behind my back, I wouldn't be able to talk. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you all have an excellent new year. And yeah, welcome to 2026.